Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Coach Steg. How we doing?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm good. We've kind of been talking in the lobby for a bit, but if and for those who might not know who you are, if you give us a little introduction on how you got to strength and conditioning and where you currently are.
Yeah, my journey into strength and conditioning kind of started just as a soccer player growing up, getting into high school soccer and just being pretty undersized and pretty slow, but just good at running. And I had some teammates that were older than me and bigger and stronger and definitely more mature looking than I was, probably weighing like 170 playing soccer. So started to take some advice from them, got in the gym and just kind of fell in love with it, and then started to study it, or decided to study it in college, and just continued to love of sports and training. Kind of led me into the finding out that I could actually do this for a living, and then took that to an internship in Dallas at a private facility called Michael Johnson Performance, and then got a taste of the team setting of strength and conditioning and fell in love with training teams versus just individual kids along the way. And that kind of led me down the road to collegiate strength and conditioning, where I just kind of moved back home, did an internship, lived with my parents, and commuted to the University of Houston for a semester, and then bounced over to grad school, just kind of doing the next thing in line to try to get into the college world. And that took me through another internship after grad school back at Texas A&M, and then drove me up to University of Cincinnati, where I got my first full-time offer. And then about 6 months ago, really moved out to Pittsburgh and started working here with women's lacrosse and swim and dive.
Nice. Again, I love talking to people who have had experience with the private sector and then went into collegiate, because personally I think you approach programming and people differently after that at public setting, like private but like public, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
What currently gets you fired up about the industry? This is a quick shout out to our main sponsor on this channel, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is all-in-one platform that hosts programs, questionnaires, testing, anything that you may need for your athlete's performance. You can host it in TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr also now has two different sides, which is OS and Practice. For more information on TeamBuildr, check out the link in the description. And if you use code PAChalkup all together, you will get a 30-day free trial.
I mean, I think I've always had a passion for helping people. And so I think what regularly gets me fired up is just the potential to go in and try to change someone's life on a regular basis. I think what drives me, or what I'm passionate about the industry, is that I think we're moving the needle in the right direction as far as being able to place a higher value on what we do. And I think that only helps everyone raise their floor and raise their ceiling when you break into the industry or you try to make the next move up. I think it's slowly but surely, I mean, even the last 3 years that I've had as a full-time strength coach, I've seen it change a little bit there. So I'm excited just for the continued progression of that and to see where it comes. It's where we're at like 3 years from now.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, I mean, I speak to plenty of people across there, and I always have the UK and Europe to compare it to. It does seem like a more collaborative space across there, where like everyone's technically just a phone call away and they'll give you the answers you're looking for, as opposed to like in the past where perhaps people were a little bit more guarded with what they were doing in their programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I feel like we're in a similar boat here, and I think it depends on like who you get connected with and who you try to seek information from. But it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like up to the strength coach to figure out how to solve their own answers and like draw questions that are going to help you develop them as strength coaches, and then with the end goal being how to figure out how to serve their athletes better. So being a phone call away from plenty of resources has definitely become more and more of a thing. I think the longer a strength coach that is constantly seeking growth is in the field, and if not that, then there's endless resources all over the internet these days. So there's definitely a few ways to continue learning and find answers like that.
For sure. You mentioned it before, but I know that you attend Summer Strong often as well, and I do attribute a lot of the collaborative spaces and the growth to that sort of event, where it's more like people are there to hang out and not like learn science. Like, I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, Summer Strong is an unreal event. I'm pretty sure when I was listening to your podcast with Bert, I feel like he was like, "Oh yeah, you got to get out here next summer." It's so interesting. I think they do an unreal job of bringing in people. Like last summer there were like one or two fairly sciencey presentations, which is awesome. But a lot of the other ones were more so like presentations or storytelling about these big life stories that a lot of people can relate to, and there's like an emotional draw to the speaker and the way they're presenting these topics, and it's just like, it's so much more than sitting there and taking notes on like, oh yeah, you're right, I should probably be doing my Olympic variations with like 80% instead of 90 when I'm peaking or something like that. There's more stuff that I think that's going to change you as a person and absolutely a strength coach than like an X's and O's practitioner, even though there are guys that talk on that at Summer Strong. And
how does that then carry over to your session and your programming?
Definitely, like leaving Summer Strong, I think you just definitely have a greater appreciation for all of the lives that you touch on a regular basis as a strength coach. There's often a presenter, and I say often, I've only been twice, but there's a presenter that makes you take a different perspective on life and like what you experience and go through on a regular basis. I don't know. I feel like the last 2 years I've left fulfilled and grateful for what I get to do on a daily basis and like call it my job. You're inspired by some storytelling that you've heard from some of the presenters and people that you've met. Yeah, I think everyone and their mom should definitely experience it at least once.
Especially people's moms. With your roll-up pit, you've got swim, dive, and lacrosse. What are some considerations that you go through when programming for them on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month?
Yeah, lacrosse is a fun one. I think I didn't know anything about the sport growing up, but taking the job at Cincinnati, moving out there and getting to talk to one of the strength coaches at Texas A&M before leaving that had lacrosse previously, getting to know the sport and all of its demands. It's an exciting, fast, physically demanding sport. It's got to be one of the most physically demanding sports there is. And I think with that, some of the bigger considerations are that, and you could argue either way on this, that you're probably trying to develop a jack of all trades that's, especially in the women's game, and all of the things that come with training like female field sport athletes from a risk perspective. Like maximal strength is a huge thing, especially from the waist down, from injury prevention, force production, just general athleticism, eccentrically, concentrically, isometrically, like fast and slow, all of those things. Like getting maximally strong, really important. Becoming maximally fit, also very important, because you're going to be on the field for 5 minutes plus at a time. There's turnovers on each end of the field. You're not getting subbed off if there's no goals being scored, or unless there's like a real quick time to do it in transition. You can't just be good for one possession. You also have to be extremely fast if you plan on being useful in transition, trying to run somebody down or take the ball from somebody, trying to drive past a defender and dodge hard, or if you're playing a zone and defense, trying to get out to the ball and hit the brakes real quick. You need to be able to accelerate and decelerate hard, kind of like I mentioned with the speed, but in tight spaces and chaotic environments. So when it comes to like putting together a training program, I try to think, and gosh, I just heard somebody explain this the other day. Like, what would I want to program, gosh, I'm going to butcher this. Program like so this is what it was. Program to elicit how your opponents will feel after they play us. So is that, gosh, they were fast. Gosh, they were able to fly it around to the ball quickly. Gosh, they just never got tired. All of those things. So that's one of those things that you kind of consider when you're putting things together. So it's like, okay, I know I need to be durable and robust. So I'm going to do a ton of training on one leg, increase stability from the belly button down, from a hip dominant and a knee dominant perspective. Do a ton of ankle work so I can interact with the ground better. Train the upper body to be robust, because it is not a non-contact sport. You're going to be clanging and banging, trying to run past people or stop people from moving past you. You got to resist being bent sideways. If I'm trying to resist somebody that's running around me to the cage, and I know that lateral flexion is a potential risk for lower body injury. I got to have a solid trunk as far as strength goes there. So, I mean, gosh, there's like so many things to consider, and you don't have to overcomplicate it. But I think that's something that excites me from a training point of view with them, is like all of those things together leads kind of to what can be a very unique training structure. Like I was just talking today, actually, I did a program audit based on what my programming was for lacrosse at Cincinnati last year, and kind of talked about how, like, while everyone needs to be strong because it helps like X amount of things, strength in capacity, being able to be strong repeatedly under a little fatigue, is kind of like how we started to tailor our programming towards the end of the fall. So it's like, and this is something that I had done with myself, hadn't done with athletes, tried it with the lacrosse team, and they loved it. We did like a 10-minute strength circuit. So it was like bench press and deadlift. You have like 80%, 85% on the bar, sets of 3 reps, try to do as many rounds as you can in 10 minutes. Same idea with like heavy reverse lunges or a single leg movement. Like strength by itself is kind of arguably not useless, but you could be more useful with it. So strength and capacity is just a direction we tried to push. And luckily we were very fit. We were really strong, and we had minimal like significant injuries and time lost. So is that why? I don't know, but I think it definitely did not hurt them.
I think you spoke about 2 really good things then just now. First being the concept. Again, I learned this a while back, but it's like taking athletes to the dark side or dark zone of training, where like it sucks to be there. You hate it. You don't want to do it, but it kind of goes back to what you were saying. It's like your opponents will feel so much worse after playing you, because like you know for a fact that you can handle everything that they have and have an answer for. So it's like it's teaching resilience. It's teaching them that like it can suck, but like you can make it through it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I think the example used was like a high school football or a football team. It's like, yeah, they hit hard. They were fast. They just never quit. Like you couldn't get in their heads, like that kind of thing. So, okay, so how do you get there? Like, okay, we're going to get really good at squatting and hang cleaning and pressing. We're going to train with a lot of density. Like all of those things have a place. And I think those aren't just like football movements. Anybody can get stronger. You know that from any amount of movements. It's not like a football hang clean that, shoot, I got lacrosse, we can't hang clean, whatever. But yeah, definitely.
The second point to that was it's a kind of 2-parter, but I love talking about experimenting on yourself before drip feeding it into your athletes or clients, because like you get a better sense for what the session feels like, what the stimulus looks like, what the adaptations might happen from it. But then you also get to like, you get this cool thing, and Coach AK and even Madison, they're really good at it, where they can dictate everything that's going to happen. They can be like, yep, week 3 you're going to feel this, and it sucks, but we can do it. And then like they taper off, or something happens to make them feel a little bit better, so they can drive more. Again, pushing that ceiling, lowering the floor, kind of thing that you were talking about. But that circuit that you're talking about, it kind of sounds like a metabolic circuit, where it's just like for 10 minutes, 37 minutes, whatever the timing is, it's just balls to the wall, and you're just going through it.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think a part of that is like, I guess dating back to at least a year and a half ago, I started training myself with the Cincinnati football strength and conditioning coaches, who are awesome dudes. We started training at between like 4 and 5 a.m. Just got it done before everyone's first groups of the day came in. Just like great community feel, training with other guys, going through the same stuff. And it was hard stuff. And the guy that was writing the training, he is like the jack of all trades, Brandon Garcia. He's like super knowledgeable, really good dude, a variety of experiences. And so honestly, a ton of that, or I guess a lot of the training that we did as a strength coach group, influenced a part of that idea, because I was like, I know I'm more fit than I have been, and I haven't really been doing any direct running or conditioning. I know I'm stronger than I've been in a long time. How is that not applicable to athletes that have more than one thing that they have to be good at, like to be good in their sport more than one time? And yeah, that just kind of is where that stemmed from. Obviously, there's certain things that might make more sense for athletes than strength
Mhm.
coaches. That you got to be conservative because these kids also have to go do a 2 hour practice, and instead of just walk around and yell at other people for the rest of the day.
And then have classes.
Yeah, right. They got to make it through class without falling asleep because they just got beat in the weight room or on the field too. On top of that, but yeah, there's definitely in like putting yourself through it has got to be a non-negotiable for
Mhm.
strength coaches. And even when that's the case, one, you get to live it, and your kids most likely will see you living it. When you explain like this is what we're gonna do, this is when it's gonna like really start to suck. Like you're really gonna feel like
Mhm.
crap 5 minutes into this. They start to feel like crap 5 minutes in. They're like, oh shit, he was right. And then like light bulbs go off, trust isn't instantly built because you called it and you were right about this. And down the road, when you start to like stack sessions like that and everyone starts to see progress and improvements, like it's game on. They'll freaking run through a wall, do whatever you want for them or
I think
whatever.
that's
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that great coaches are able to do very effectively is like get that little spark in their athletes to like to the point where their athletes run through walls for them. And it's like it's hard to explain if you've not experienced it, but like they're just fucking they just do anything that you ask. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this session's going to suck, but we'll make it through it. Got it, coach. And it's just like fucking raw. It's class.
Dude, that's where the fun starts. Like it's fun building to that point where athletes start to trust you, but once they when they do trust you and then you just see themselves go like just toe the line of pushing to a limit that they should probably be restrained from, that's where it's like, okay, like I've got it, you know. So,
When I was across at UW, I had an athlete. They were twins. One of them was in my return to play group. For some reason, he was also in the next rack from me. So I had like my four athletes. Then he was in the rack next to me. And it got to some points where like I saw he was just like resting. So I was like, I bet you can't do another 10 press ups. He's like, got it, coach. And he would just fucking bash out another 10. But like that's what I love about sports performance when you get kids to care about doing it and just like going the extra mile. Like it's a game changer.
mhm.
You've obviously spoke about lacrosse. How does the programs differ for swim and dive?
Yeah, for swim and dive, I mean, swim swim is no joke in its own right as well. Like those guys and girls swim thousands of yards daily, sometimes two
And
practices
early.
in a day. What's that?
And early.
And early, 100%. And I mean, they've got to be just as strong from tip to toe as anybody else. I mean, it's we got to kind of like balance the opposites. It's like they swim thousands of yards, which is thousands of strokes per arm, per hip, per leg, all that. And so strength is a massive thing that we chase, especially in the like the shoulders and around the hips and the lower back because of how much like in underwater kicking the lower back undulates and obviously in pulling water how much stress the shoulder and the rotator cuff take. So like trying to build a nice strong upper back can do a number in preventing or reducing the risk of shoulder injuries. Getting really strong in the pull-ups and chin-ups with like complete extension at the bottom and full range of motion. Pulling there is a massive thing that we chase. Really strong lower bodies, like start of the year, full depth squatting, just working on hip mobility and strength through a large range of motion will only help them get stronger faster while developing the mobility and like the upper back postural strength for the trunk to develop them to be able to hit walls harder, kick harder, start harder, all of those things. So there's a number of things that we chase and compared to dive there's a lot less. I don't want to say it that way. We pretty much try to just maximally improve our vertical jump and keep the upper body very durable because of the number of times that they come into the water coming in at like 30 miles an hour or more, especially off towers, like the wrists and the elbows and the shoulders and the neck and the upper back have to take that beating first. So trying to develop uh, strength and structure like around the joints to be able to withstand that and be able to from the belly button down, be able to be strong enough to bend the 1 and 3 meter boards to be able to get enough height off the boards to perform the dives. Especially off tower, you're not going to have a flexible board to be able to give you energy back. So you have to produce all of the height off of this concrete platform to be able to get up into the air to be able to perform your dive. So kind of like slow strength, being able to be like maximally strong, and then really quick for tower divers and a flash or platform, excuse me. Those are kind of the bigger things there. And then just develop a ton of core strength around the lower back because of the amount of times that they flex into their tucks and pikes, and try to avoid an overextension injury from when they're entering the water, getting out of their dive to enter. So yeah, those are just a few big things there.
You mentioned something quite interesting. I want you to dive into that a little bit more. And it's something I've never actually considered, but it's accounting for the reps and resistance that they're physically doing in the water. How are you sort of accounting for that, and what are you doing to balance it within the program itself?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do a ton of volume with vertical pulling. The biggest thing that I do, I guess, to kind of complement and counteract all of the repetitions that they do in the water, which is for the most part like pure concentric action, is one, slow it down. So we do a ton of, like early on, a ton of eccentric work and a ton of isometric work, like pre-fatigue ISOs, like holding your body over the bar, or like on a lat pull down, hold the bar below your chin, build some time under tension there. I love training for both grips, because in a chin up grip at the lengthened position, you stretch the lats a little more. Overhand grip, like a regular pull-up grip, might be more practical just because of the position that your hands are in when you're actually pulling, is more so like what you're going to do in the water. Where we go higher in volume is with our horizontal rows, and that's something I've drawn from a number of strength coaches that work with swimmers as well. And then we kind of complement that with some extra like rear delt and rotator cuff work, whether it's like a row and rotate, or some field goals, or some IYT ISOs, or some just bent over reverse flies with pauses and things like that. So we don't go too crazy with the volume. Just try to work time under tension, huge ranges of motion to make sure we can get strong and flexible, like move those needles together, like up and to the right at the same time. And then hopefully, all that being said, be able to pull more water per stroke, be able to take less of a toll on the structures deep in the shoulder, to hopefully have each of those strokes take less of a toll on the rotator cuff and things like that at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I hadn't well, obviously load is load, but I hadn't considered like the balancing aspect of it. So like it makes sense that I'm not 100% sure on the exercise, but it sounded like some form of upright row, or something that is balancing the movement that they do in the water.
Well, as far as like the opposite goes?
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, I think that the opposite of that would be any kind of like external rotation or abduction work. So we do all of the like pulling movements that you could argue are the exact same that they do in the pool, just with more resistance in both directions. It's mostly just like trying to strengthen the external rotators in a number of ways. So like we don't do a ton of upright rowing. If we're not doing those pulls, we're doing like some kind of overhead press progression, like overhead press, push jerk. We'll eventually split jerk. We do bench press. Earlier on, we were doing one dumbbell incline bench press. It's just a number of those things, and trying to maintain, like you can strengthen a lot of things, and you can also mobilize. So we'll work a lot of T-spine rotation through some core work, like landmine rotations or just heavy cable rotations across the body, and then just general mobility work as well.
Nice. And in a force development aspect for them, what are some ways that you look to develop that? Because they still need to, again, like you mentioned, dive off the board, push against the wall. Like, how is that development sort of brought through for them?
Yeah, both groups started front squatting. So we'll just go with swim for now. So swim, front squatting, we front squatted for, I think, 7 weeks. started higher in volume. Then we went into APRE training, APRE
Nice.
6 and 3 to really get like some good quality heavy work in. Now that we're racing, we're moving to box squats. So we're warming up with back squats and then moving to box squats for our like true working sets. And like last week we hit some heavy triples. This week we hit like a heavy triple, then some doubles. Next week will just be straight doubles leading into our big mid-season meet, which is the week right before Thanksgiving. So following that, like through the rest of the swim year, like after that big meet, we'll kind of take the box away. We'll go back to, if we just talk about lower body strength training, take the box away, go into some back squatting, full range of motion. Then once we get into championship season, like back in January, we'll put the box back in. I'm not sure if you're like a box squat guy or pin squat guy or anything like that, but to try to just save the legs a little bit, really still stimulate them to a high degree, but without like taking them into deep flexion that's going to just leave them more sore. So we can stimulate things and leave a little energy and recovery on the table, I guess. But and then we'll carry box squats through the rest of the season there. Similar idea for bench pressing. We'll get into like some board press or pin press later in the year. We'll get some jerks in for some like explosive upper body work. Plyo push-ups will stay a staple in the program, along with some various med ball slams and like overcoming isometrics, like in pressing into the hooks, things like that, like an overcoming iso lat pull down and a rack pull as well. Those will happen on different days. Going into the dive side of things, we mostly just roll, and we will deadlift with swim as well, but that'll turn into like our dynamic lower body work. But going into dives kind of progression, the biggest thing I'm worried about is just their squat numbers and their single leg strength, so they can have a good hurdle step into their big jump. So we'll start with some like extended eccentrics, like 6 to 8 seconds on the way down. We'll do the multi-pause, like 3 seconds per position. What do we do now? Now we're doing Hatfield squats, so like eccentrically controlling just their body weight, and then maybe using their hands a little bit on the way up. And then those are going to move to pin squats as they also get ready for their big mid-season meet, just so we can stay a little fresher and just work on pure strength and power production there from a dead stop. So similarly, we'll break in off of that. We'll go back through a little bit of just regular squatting, and then we'll really ramp it up. I'm thinking about just moving them to the belt squat later in the spring, so we can just try to keep them fresher, keep some, or I guess not keep, but like try to limit some lower back soreness that might come from squatting. Although I think they do. If you watch the dive team squat, I think they might be some of the best squatters on campus. But
nice. It's always the unexpected sports that have the best squats. And
I say that. I just told the lacrosse team last week the same thing, so that might get me in trouble. But
Warzone. I find this really interesting, and it's something that I've been diving into a little bit more. Pardon the pun.
Nice.
But it's how to reduce DOMs but still get the same stimulus. So again, partials are a good way of doing it because you can still load it pretty heavy, but obviously because of the reduced movement or range of movement, there's less DOMs that come into play. Obviously that becomes really helpful when it is in season and they have their meets and they have their competitions. How essentially do you phase that out, and when do you start like reducing some of the range to reduce some of the DOMs?
Yeah, it kind of starts when the more important stuff picks up for them. So the closer we get to the bigger competitions and the bigger meets, where including practices are going to be more demanding. That's when I start to implement things that are reduced range of motion movements, whether it's a pin press or like a box squat or a pin squat. That's really where I throw it in. And it's not like a long-term thing. It might be like when we go in season with lacrosse last year, if we lifted twice a week, one day we did for sure box squat, but the other day we did like do a full range of motion split squat. That was like our like secondary big lift on our other day of the week, just to maintain strength in a vulnerable position with just minimal volume. So yeah, it's just kind of all based around when the most important things that they need to be fresh for happen.
Yeah, this is fascinating because I first heard it like 2 years ago, I think, about limiting the range to essentially not elicit DOMs. And again, from a prep stance, it makes sense to do it more. But like I love neuro prepping my athletes for, again, competitions. So it's like, how do I marry both? That became like a very important question. And I think, yeah, I love that challenge of like, how can I squeeze the most out of them when they are, having to be fresh more than you can exhaust them.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only one piece of the puzzle too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, depending on the drills they do in the lacrosse practice, if they do a ton of small sided stuff, which is like for defenders, a ton of like flying around the zone, which means a ton of cutting, like they're probably going to be sore from that too. Or
Mm-hmm.
if they change it up in the pool and maybe they do a ton of resisted swimming, whether it's resisted upper body or they put like socks on their feet and make it resisted for the lower body. Like maybe they come in dehydrated, maybe they are just stiff for whatever reason. Like just because we box squat, it doesn't mean they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to train and not feel a little bit. So it's kind of just doing your due diligence or like doing what you can control to try to limit, like still give them what they need to either maintain or improve some qualities without, or I guess with trying to limit how dirty you do them by implementing whatever you're going to implement.
Yeah. How, since being at Pitt, what was something that you got really challenged with in terms of like how you used to program and like how are you approaching it now?
That's a great question. So at Cincinnati, with the swim team, we trained 3 days a week. We lifted Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and that never really changed in my 3 years that I was there. And I thought we clearly made a ton of progress in the weight room from either like barbell numbers or force plate numbers or even just time drops in the pool when kids are like, oh my God, I've never felt better off my starts or my walls, whatever. Going from Cincy to here, the sprinters on the swim team train 5 days a week.
Oh,
Mid
shit.
distance and distance swimmers only train three, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So in training, and with that, there's like some constraints that came from the coach where Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're pretty much running a full hour long lift, like all of your big barbell stuff, all your regular accessories. Tuesday and Thursday, you're either doing a clean variation or a snatch variation, and that's pretty much it. Now in our season, we're doing a clean or a snatch with some plyos, and then they're doing their big, like in air quotes, dry land core work, which is, and it's honestly really well written. The coaches write it. It's like a ton of ab rollouts and pike ups and things like that. But with that, I've kind of had to like. There's also the constraint of Wednesdays. The coach specifically asked for like no lower body on Wednesdays because they're planning on like hitting it hard in the pool. So like, okay, well, shoot, I need to, if I know I'm going to squat on Monday and deadlift on Friday, like where can I put any kind of like knee dominant hamstring work or where can I put any single leg variations? Because we're pretty much just bench press, do some rows, do some like hip work on Wednesdays, do a little shoulder care, do some explosive upper body plyos. I think definitely trying to work around that and implement the system that I think is best fit for sprint swimmers has definitely been an interesting thing to adjust to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about like, again, obviously the coaches get the last say, but like they would have specifics on what they want the strength coach to do on what days.
Yeah, I mean, our head coach has been at a ton of very successful swim programs, or I guess been a part of very many from being on the coaching side of things, and I think some of it is some of what he wants to see is based on those influences, which is totally fair. Like if it works for some of the better programs, then like there's got to be something to it. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely making it work, and I think we're making some good progress in the weight room. And the like force plate numbers show it, pull up numbers show it. But it's been trying to figure out how to take like a 3 day system that
Mm.
I was like moving and grooving with and like spread it out a little bit to a 5 day system with a few different constraints. So like, and even in that sense, you're like, well, if I'm going to Olympic lift Tuesday, Thursday, I'm going to squat on Monday, I'm going to bench on Wednesday, and I'm going to deadlift on Friday. How do I not just make every day a high day? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been interesting, but they just had a great meet last weekend on pretty much minimal rest, and so something's working. Not saying it's the weight room, it's probably the pool, but because that's where they spend the most of their time. But yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Nice. I think as well, like when like we all hope for more days with the athletes. Like
Mm-hmm.
We could, oh, if only I could have them 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever. But like, it's how do we approach the programming in a way that A, doesn't completely tax them out, but B, it's like there's enough variation for them to keep coming.
Yeah, definitely.
When you are sort of programming for these phases, what are you doing in terms of like readiness and making sure that your athletes are able to keep coming and keep performing throughout all their competition, their meets, and their phases?
For readiness, I haven't really gone down like the questionnaire thing, or like we don't have whoop straps or anything like that to check like from a department side of things versus them just wear their own gear, they check on it. But usually it's coming from the coaches and it's coming from just conversation. So it's like I'll get feedback from the lacrosse girls. Like that practice was ridiculous in the lift from Monday combined with like the practice Tuesday and conditioning on Tuesday. We roll in to lift on Wednesday and like everyone smoked. It's like, okay, all right, I'll take my foot off the gas a little bit. Maybe we'll just do like a set or 2 sets of accessories after our big stuff like we need to get done. Swim, same kind of thing. It kind of comes mostly from the coaches. It's like, yeah, we're gonna like we hit them pretty hard. Let's take these, I don't know, take these triples, turn them to doubles or doubles to singles and spare them a little bit so we can have fresher bodies in the pool for like a really important practice that's coming up like 2 days from now. So kind of from a readiness kind of thing, that's pretty much what we roll it with, is mostly subjective stuff. And outside of that, I'll look at our force plate data. I try to get all of the athletes that I work with to jump twice a week because it's kind of just a toss up if you jump once a week, in my opinion, and like hope to see what their best output that they're capable of is. And if I'm seeing trends that are not for multiple metrics, whether it's like jump height or RSI, or maybe it's like a relative to their body weight metric, if they're just not going in the right direction, then I'll check in on them. Just what's going on? How do we feel? How are you moving in the water? How do you feel on the field? If all of these red flags are confirming, then it's time for a deeper conversation. So, but if not, then it's like, okay, maybe you just had a couple down days, but you're back. So,
Again, I've spoke about this. I'm debating whether to bring it up again, but it's like, what is the easiest and best way to get your athletes' readiness scores? Hey, how are you doing? Can I get a fist bump? How much power is in a fist bump? So it's like, I always have this debate in my head, like, when are we too much science? Is that important? Like, how important is it as opposed to like, hey, how you doing? What's quicker? Because if you've got like an hour or 45-minute session, what's easiest to test, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially like if you have any kind of rapport with your athletes, like, and they respect you and you get to know who they are and how they operate, you don't need I don't know how much a Whoop band is, but say it's $500. You don't need a $500 strap to tell you, or for me to be able to get a feel on how you're looking and doing internally today. But on the contrary, there is like how you feel is a lie. So like you could tell me like you feel like crap and then you go jump a PR on the force plates. It's like, okay, well, I know that everything else checks out, so you might just be in your head today. Or the opposite of that, like I feel great, everything's great, and next thing I know, like all of these weights are not moving the way they should be. Like I'm missing reps I shouldn't miss on a hang clean or whatever. And it's like, okay, this might be a day where, you know what, let's just move on to our next block. It's just not it today, and cut some volume, maybe leave a little in the tank, and like we'll come back in 2 days and see what we can do. So yeah, I love that fist bump. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it like that, but that's great.
Oh no, like, so you can tell exactly how your athlete's coming in. Like if there's someone that's like that always gives you like a decent fist bump, like a hard fist bump, and then the day after they come in and give you a little soft little touch, you'll be like, the fuck's wrong with you?
Exactly.
What's going on? It's the same, like, so anytime anyone comes into my weight room, I say like, the fist bump is first. Then it's like, how did you eat? Like, have you ate? Did you sleep well? Have you drank water? Depending on those three questions, one action, like I can adjust my program on the fly. Because like, again, a box squat to a full range squat all that's different is you're just adding the box.
Yeah.
So it's like there's not much that changes in my program. You're still getting that squatting. It just looks different. A couple days ago on Tuesday, had someone come in and they were feeling like just a little sniffly, just a little like under the weather. I was like, sick, let's take down the weights. I don't need to get squat you as heavy as I was going to. Like, we can do that next week. It's okay.
That's something I've done as well. But I do think and maybe I'm wrong, but I do think there is some value in playing the like, let's just see card. Like, not necessarily not being considerate of the fact that somebody may not be feeling their best, but like if you tell me I feel a little off today, but like I don't know what's going on, and I'm immediately just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, well let's just let's be like ultra conservative today and just like there's something to be said for doing that. But on the other side, it's like, okay, well, we just kind of let you go and see what happens, and if you're rolling, let's just roll. But if you start to like if you start to have like, oh geez, yeah, like my body aches are coming through, then it's like, okay, that's for sure like confirmation that we can definitely take our foot off the gas.
So I would, again, it's a good point that you bring up, and that should have maybe been clearer. So that I think that's when coach's eye comes into play. Like, your eyes, should be trained enough to be like, okay, actually, she is feeling a little, or he is feeling a little under, but they're moving fucking well. And I do kind of think that art is being lost, where like coaches are just relying on too much data and not actually being able to assess what's going on. But yeah, it's that thing where like, and to back up a little bit, to your point about sometimes when they are tired, they go in and jump a PR. I do think there's something to that. I had a conversation with Lachlan Walmont, who's in Australia, and like some of his athletes, after the most grueling session on the field, went into the weight room, squat PR'd, jump PR'd, just like hit massive PRs. And it's like, how? Why? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So like, I think that's where the art of coaching, coach's eye comes into play, where you then like don't really know what's happening, but let's fucking rock it. Like, let's fucking go.
When I was at Texas A&M as an intern, one of my favorite things that I learned from my mentor, and one of my favorite mentors, Bo Sandoval, was a quote. Like, I was squatting, like me and another intern were squatting, and like in passing, we were just talking like, dude, this feels so heavy today. Like, I don't know if we got it. And Bo walks by, he's like, well, guys, got news for you. Sometimes how you feel is a lie. And he just kept walking. I was like, no way. No freaking way. What just happened? That brought up what you just said, reminded me of it's almost like a psychology game you get to play where like I mentioned, you always want to be considerate, have the athletes like health and safety be the priority, but I do think there's something to providing the opportunity to like let someone else get in their head and then just confirm that with whatever it is. You're there to have their best interest in mind, but at the end of the day, I think there is something to be like, I don't know, a devil's advocate for how someone's feeling. Not necessarily to like doubt them or test them, but to provide some kind of I don't know, maybe external motivation that like maybe turns it around for them. So I don't know, that was something that came to mind when you brought that up.
Yeah. I have this, I learned this I don't know how the degrees in the US work, but in the UK, Scotland specifically, your first 2 years are like sports science, where you get everything. So you get like biomechanics, physiology, psychology, sociology. You just get like a bit of everything in sports. And then your last 2 years, you specialize into whatever field you want, whether it's biomechanics, physiology, or S&C. One really important thing that I learned in psychology in my second year or third year was like, it was an old golfing video, and they were like, the guy was just shanking it all the time, just like bombing that ball.
Sounds like me.
But like, so the coach just turns around and he was like, see this coin? Put it in your left pocket. Or like, it was a golf ball. It was something that like elicit a feeling within him. And like the coach, after that, the athlete just fucking nailed it. Like, just nails it. the lecturer at that point was like, he just paused the video and he was like, "What do you guys think is going on?" So like me being like a fucking smart ass, I was like, "Is it the counterbalancement? Like, did that just balance him off?" And he's like, "Not quite. I like where you're heading, but not quite." And he was like, "He just feels silly." Like if you can elicit an opposite feeling to the feeling of them being stuck in their head, like they're no longer in their head focusing on that specific thing. They're now thinking about they look silly. So
Yeah.
I have this thing when I'm teaching Olympic weightlifts, and if someone's like in this rut with it, I'll stick a tissue paper just like hanging off their shorts, because like for a couple seconds they just feel silly. Like everyone's looking at them, they've got a tissue hanging out of their shorts. Like no one's really knowing why, because I don't explain it. I just like, hey, put this in your shorts. Let's lift again. And because they're now focused on the tissue as opposed to the lift itself, they fucking nail it.
Might have to try that for
Dude.
myself and the athletes.
It's like it's just the power of like what you were saying, like the psychology has a big impact on how you feel, how you perform. Because like if you're stuck, and like athletes are the best at being stuck in their own head. So like, how do we get them out long enough to perform?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot to just short living emotion and the previous rep and like learning from it and just moving forward with whatever you have to change, you know? Yeah.
100%. I like that's my go-to. I love psychology, so it fucking gets me fired up. So with kind of going back into your sports, how do you sort of manage that time, like that contact time into your athletes as they're like coming through the program?
Manage the what time? Sorry.
So like obviously you'll have a team. There's a lot of contact points that you need to get in with them. How does that work within your teams?
I mean, for lacrosse, try to get out to like every practice for warm up. Try to get just like daily touch points there. I mean, it's also an opportunity to just run a variety of warm ups and just get different movement patterns and exposures in for them, whether it's a plyo drill or a like a change of direction drill to just cap off some warm ups. But it's also a time to just like check in with them, like how we're feeling the morning after lift, conditioning, the weekend, game, whatever it is. Also catch up with the coaches, and I think that might be just as valuable as catching up with the athletes as far as having the contact points goes. Because I mean, we coach out of different buildings and things like that. So, I mean, when the athletes see you working well with your coaches, it's like, how could I not trust both of these groups of people? So, kind of like in the weight room too, it's like small talk when they get in the weight room, you know, get to know them a little bit, see what they're about, see what they enjoy, and in turn, they get to learn a little bit about you and trust you more. So swim, not really that involved. Dive, not that involved, like at the pool or at the gymnastics room where they practice. I mean, half the time they got their heads underwater swimming anyways. So most of that just kind of stays in the weight room. But you go to practice and they see you at practice. You can walk around, throw them a little like encouragement or a little bit of like friendly smack talk about how fast or slow they're moving in the water, and they know you're invested in them. So I pretty much see the majority of the swim team every day in the weight room, see lacrosse almost every day in the weight room or out at practice for either conditioning or warm-ups. So yeah, I get a lot of contact points. There we go.
So the reason I bring that up is like, I think it's the non-working hours that make the most impact, if that makes sense. Because like I'm pretty sure not all coaches get paid to turn up to the practice itself. So it's like stuff that's coming out from your own want and need to have that.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like my last thing on the menu today was the swim group that ended their lift at 2:45. Practice started at 3. Left here before getting on the phone with you, walked over to the pool, hung out for like 40 minutes. They're doing some sprint sets. I didn't get to interact with too many of them, obviously, because they're working, but it's like, oh, lacrosse has like Saturday practices, or they got a scrimmage, or this was even before it was more of like a primary role to be at weekend events and actually contribute. But yeah, as many times as you can voluntarily be at a part of something that is developing them as an athlete, it goes a long way. Like you can't really put a price on the value that it brings when it comes to like creating trust and reliability and investment into things that are not just like barbells and 45-pound plates, you know?
What's pounds?
I'm
I'm
what
joking.
is it,
I'm
like
joking.
22 something?
That was one of my hardest challenges in the US. Cause like, so for a
Pounds to
joke,
kilos, or
yeah.
kilos to pounds.
So sometimes like athletes would come up to me and they were like, "Have I got the right way on the bar?" And I was like, "Fuck, you tell me." Do you?
That's funny.
No, it was that was the biggest challenge. Like I knew that I had to have my shit together for that, but it was like, fuck, puns are so
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Hey, whatever. Feet, yards, pounds, miles, gallons.
So that very interesting thing is like UK is a pounds country. Like if we're talking about like body weight, people will give you pounds or stone. But like weight room wise, everything is kilos.
Huh. That is interesting.
And then when we talk about like road distances, it's miles. So like that doesn't change. But sometimes like in the signs you'll have yards.
Huh. I mean, it sounds like y'all need to make up your mind.
Right? Right.
I'm just messing with you.
No, I'm not. They need to figure this shit out. Just change it all into kilograms and meters. Again, I'm Portuguese, so.
That's funny.
What advice would you give an intern or strength coach coming into this industry?
Man, it's a good one. An intern or a strength coach kind of getting into the field. I feel like interns and strength coaches trying to get into the field need to just stick around as long as possible and do and see more than they think they should or that they know they should. Like I know when I was an intern at like Michael Johnson Performance in my last semester of college, I was pretty much interning, watching everything from the Major League Baseball offseason group to the NFL offseason group to the guys that were prepping for the combine to like a college offseason group. Was observing all of those things. And I really think that along with like the people that I got to learn from directly, not just like observing and helping sessions, really set me like on a freaking upward trajectory from the first day that I spent at that internship. One, because I didn't know anything at the time, but two, like if I was only assigned to help with the MLB like the baseball offseason group, I would never get exposure to working with contact sports or anything like that, or working with youth athletes in the afternoon. And I think where I may have gone wrong and not done that was like at Texas A&M. I was helping with a good handful of teams, but I know I didn't help with softball. I didn't really help with volleyball. I didn't really help with soccer because I was spending so much other time with these other teams. And I haven't had like a job opportunity that's come across my plate that's like been with any of those teams. But like, who's to say if that wasn't one of the primary roles or like a secondary role that I got to help with that I might be more marketable for any kind of thing like that. I think definitely like interns and young strength coaches need to be a part of as many things as they can and get as many different coaching experiences as they can, whether it's like youth athletes or adults or I don't know, college athletes or like if some coach hands them an injured athlete that they need to go handle their lift. I don't know. I think all of those different experiences are things that need to be maximized to be able to set yourself apart and learn more faster. I think as an intern or like a young strength coach, I think you should probably like do as much as you can. And at the end of the day, try to remind yourself that you probably have more to give and probably more to gain. So like just keep seeking those things out to just make sure you're filling your bucket every single day and just maximizing whatever that experience is that you're a part of.
Yeah, I think this is a really good point. If I give this example, I'll give it away. If we're just going down the same route, so like if it's like, say someone's really into conjugate and like the whole lineage that you go after that is just conjugate type training, there's going to come a point where like if you do get offered a role somewhere else that isn't conjugate, like that's going to be a steep learning curve. So it's getting enough experience that challenges how you think and the perception that your mentors have instilled in you so that you can be a more jack of all trades kind of approach to programming where you can like you mentioned, like you've got 5 days with athletes, but some of those 5 days are constraints. Like, how do you maneuver around that? And I think that kind of brings on to my next point is like the way you're talking about your program, and it's like there's triphasic, there's tier system mixed in there, but you kind of like you're a principles based coach. So like you simply like take things from whichever method to best suit what you have in front of you.
Yeah, I think I started doing this before I even learned what it was, the following the vertical integration model and just emphasizing. I mean, it's so close to like linear and block as well, but it's kind of like a joint effort to continually touch the training of different qualities, but spend more of your time allocated to one while the others just kind of get touched on. So like it's almost like year round, except for when we really go in season, that especially get late into the season where like work capacity stuff to like just nix it, just kind of touch your high threshold stuff and move on and start recovering a little earlier. But yeah, that's kind of my approach has been to kind of give the athletes the tools to make the like gradual transfer of max strength development happen. So like teach Olympic lifts early on without emphasizing or like expecting dramatic increases in power and speed. Because as we get better at squatting and pulling and all of these things, once we actually get to a strength and power phase, then we can actually use those movements to essentially help you use the absolute strength that you gain from making your lower body stronger with a squat and use that strength more dynamically in a clean or a jump or a sprint. And then like you start to see those things kind of take off. So, and all the while, like you're touching up on work capacity stuff. You're trying to build some armor for the upper body if you're a field sport athlete, things like that. It's like the most fun part is seeing athletes reach their potential and win and go on and do all of these things they set as goals for themselves and as a team. I think the build up to that, like the building the structure to help make the physical qualities that will help get them there happen, like trying to like, it doesn't have to be a puzzle and it doesn't have to be complicated, but trying to figure out how you want to do it and how you see that it can be done in the best way for them. Like all things considered, I think that's there's so much fun in that for me. If you work with any athlete that would benefit from being able to do more work in less time, which is probably all of them. Okay, awesome. Like take all of your rows, take all of your lunges, take all of your ab work, whatever, and put them on a clock and have them do a set every minute on the minute, which means you have to organize it that way and you have to have enough time to do it. But like put them on a clock. It'll hold them accountable. It'll manage their rest. Some things will take longer than others. Like given there is a time and place for that, you're not going to do that in season. But I don't know. I think that's like where the fun starts.
Okay. I appreciate you so much for coming on today and spending some time with us. If you could let people know where they can reach out to you and sort of ask any questions or follow up.
Yeah, really, I'm pretty much just on Instagram. I don't really do anything else other than try to be active on that. It's Coach Steg, Steg, the first four letters of my long last name. So if you want to talk about whatever or just reach out and connect, that's where you can find me.
Nice. Appreciate you again so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Peace.